So now continuing on with romantic relationships and when love goes bad. So in other words, what are the things that kind of create breakups, or what are the reasons behind it? So let's go ahead and look at that. Now, in this Hill study, Emerging Adults Regarding Breakup, what we see here is this 2-year study, and they looked at 200 college couples, and by the end of those 2 years, over 45% of them had broken up, which actually I think is pretty good. 55 actually stayed together, which is a bit better than the divorce rate. But those who had broken up, what do they report? Well, lower levels of intimacy and love. So what does that tell us? It tells us that the passion probably was there, but the intimacy and maybe overall commitment was lacking. They're less likely to be similar in a lot of the characteristics that we were talking about that would make you come together in the first place. So things like age, SAT scores, physical attractiveness. So it just really goes to show you that it's very hard to maintain a romantic relationship if you don't have a lot in common. You may start a relationship, that certainly can happen because physical attractiveness alone can sometimes start that, but the maintenance of it is less likely. And then some of the other things is the level of balance. So, is it a give and take kind of relationship where both have the same levels of commitment? It's if you don't have that balanced kind of thing that we talked a little bit about with the insecure types of attachments, one partner may be substantially more committed to the relationship than another, then it's probably not going to last. Now, interestingly enough, women are more likely to end the relationship. You might think it would be more 50-50. And if we were in class, I always do a little poll on this to see what people think. As far as the reasons, you can see there's a variety of reasons, and remarkably, not a lot of them agreed on the exact reason. So these are just common reasons that are cited, but it doesn't mean that the partners are probably in agreement. And of course, they couldn't maintain the relationship, so it's not surprising they have a different perspective on what broke it up. So you can see here of not having any common interests, that's going to be a death knell most of the time. Not communicating effectively, having different views on sexual attitudes or marriage. Coming from different backgrounds, that can be very difficult because people may assume things, and if they're coming from different backgrounds, they're not going to have the same assumptions. They may want their independence, so they're tired of being tied up to another person and want to be able to do their own things. They've gotten bored, or their partner's gotten bored in the relationship, so it's kind of gone its way. There's the partner wanting the independence, and then finally, partner interested in another person. Notice they didn't have the person was interested in another person, so it's always the other person's fault, I guess. Now, of course, some of the issues in regards to breaking up, the rejected men, the ones that were broken up with, tend to be lonelier and unhappier, more depressed than rejected women. Some of that probably comes from the fact that rejected men, or men in general, just don't usually have as robust of a social support network and as close of friendships. And so they don't have the people to rely upon maybe in the same way that women do. A lot of times they find it harder to accept being rejected and try to stay friends. And so, that can lead to increased alcohol and drug use. That's extremely common. About half of college students who break up, they still remain depressed, at least moderately, 2 months later. And of course, when you do break up, that romantic um, entanglement can lead to harassment and, in its more extreme form, stalking. That pursuit of an ex and trying to recapture or have them come back into the fold and somehow deny that rejection ever happened. So the harassment, which is typically men to women, not the other way around, usually highly stressful for those women in regards to their fear of safety, and they may develop some anxiety and depression, nervous physical symptoms such like stomach aches or nervous tics, hypervigilance. So that can really go wrong quickly. So we always got to be making sure that we try to provide adequate protections. Even Kentucky law has been passed in regards to some of these stalking, because they can get violent if the rejection goes on for very long. So not very cheery. Why don't we go ahead and change tact a little bit after we see the implications of breaking up? Let's look at issues like cohabitation and marriage, which is what our next topic is going to be in Module 6. So stay tuned for that.